Hey everybody, Kirsten here. Thank you so much for joining me on this new episode of the Balanced Vibes podcast. Today's episode is going to be a sweet one because we're going to talk about low carbs, we're going to talk about intermittent fasting and muscle building, how these things go together, or should I say, don't go together. So, this is what we're going to talk about today. And you probably have noticed that I am not a big fan of low carbs and intermittent fasting if you have a muscle building goal. And especially, I want to make sure that you know, especially for women who are getting their periods, who still have a cycle, because a lot of the times these two things, low carbs and intermittent fasting, can really have a negative effect on women's cycles. And of course, when we know that this one thing in our body is going to be thrown off, this is not random. It's not that things happen in isolation. You cannot say that my metabolism is really healthy. It's just that my periods are super wonky. They are very irregular or they're super heavy. Something's up with them, but everything else is fine. No, it's not, because there's no body no system in the body that doesn't affect the other one. And of course, your cycle health is really related to your overall metabolic health. I mean, it's one sign of your metabolic health, and a lot of times it causes a lot of trouble. And also, if you just have a muscle building goal too, then low carb eating and intermittent fasting are not going to help you with that. Although they are very popular approaches these days, there are some programs that use them, and people who do them can argue that, but I did get great results. I felt better. I lost weight really quickly at first. I felt thinner, and things are going well. So we can't say that it didn't work. And, I can't argue with your personal experience, but I will just ask you one question. For how long have you been doing this? Because if it only has been maybe a month, then you're probably still feeling pretty good. It's cool to see the weight going down. It's cool to see this initial flat belly effect. Maybe you did some kind of 6-week challenge and you're like all excited about this. Yes, things are going really well. But then a lot of times what happens is this plateau. And this plateau looks like body starting to kind of fight back a little bit. Maybe the weight loss stops. Maybe you are starting getting signs like irritability, just more anxious, more tired. Some people tell me about migraines. And then later on comes hair loss, stuff like that. And a lot of times it takes so much time to come out of it. And I'm not making this up, you guys. It's not me just being against low carb and intermittent fasting just for the sake of it. Is not true. It's really what I see in my work every day. And I tell you, every single week, I'm on a Zoom call with somebody who's telling me this exact story. I did this thing, I cut my carbs out or cut them very low. I did sometimes even up to like 24-hour fast because I thought this is good. I have to give my body complete digestive rest or whatever the things are that, or, for proper cell regeneration. There are reasons like that, but later on, people realize that it actually wasn't the best thing for them. And sometimes it takes a long time to heal the body from that. And of course, even before we get there, we start noticing that we're not building muscle very well, which is probably your goal. If you are listening to this podcast, you probably want that. And now, if you want to build muscle, but you are hardly eating carbohydrates, or if you are fasting or otherwise having super, super long breaks between your meals, then you're just missing that building block, which is food. And how are you going to then build that muscle? Now, let's talk about all this. I just gave you like a little bit of an overview what's coming in today's episode, but to truly kick it off, I want to read you a really good quote from somebody that I follow on Instagram. Her name is Juan Doligovsky, and her handle on Instagram is Wand Wellness. And I really like her because she is very empowering. She's often talking about building. She's talking about stopping dieting. Don't diet all the time. You have to realize that you want to build muscle that weighs something, all of the things, a lot of things that I talk about here as well. And she has these really cool little quotes that she posts, and I'm going to read you one of them. It says, "Next time you get scared, you're going to get bulky lifting heavy weights, find someone who is body goals to you and ask how they did it. They did it by doing the very thing that you are afraid too. So this is great. Of course, she's talking about if you're scared to lift heavy weights because you don't want to get bulky. So that's definitely one of the things that a lot of women are scared. Like I mentioned I think in my previous episode, they just want that long, lean muscle, but we cannot get the muscle any longer than our bones are. So if you're afraid that I'm going to get so bulky because, you're telling me to lift weights, then somebody that you look up to and you want to have the body that they have, they're probably doing this. So her quote was mostly about lifting, but I want to expand that a little bit and talk also about the diet part of it. So one more thing that this person that you probably look up to and be like, look, body goals. One more thing that this person is probably doing is they are eating carbohydrates. I hope that you are noticing how many people actually talking about this who, have this strong look that you probably want to have too, and they have this muscle definition and all that. A lot of these people are saying, I'm eating 250 grams of carbs a day, I'm eating 300 carbs a day, and it's normal. I need to eat carbohydrates in order to put on muscle. And if this is you too, you want to put on muscle, but at the same time you are doing those diets that are really low in carbohydrates or going full on keto or I believe carnivore too, then it's going to be very, very difficult to build that muscle. So if you want that, you have to do what you are afraid to do, which is start eating carbohydrates. And if you're eating very, very low right now, don't jump up to like 200 from 30. Don't do that overnight. Then the increase has to be gradual. But overall, you still have to do this if you want to put on that muscle. So sometimes you hear people throwing out these arguments why you shouldn't be eating carbohydrates. And the things can be something like, well, carbs are the only macro that you don't truly need. Your body doesn't need it. So fats are essential, protein is essential, but carbohydrates aren't. So carbohydrates aren't. I should just say carbs because I feel like I have already said hydrants twice. Carbs, why are they saying that you don't need them? Well, we can say, yeah, protein is essential, fats are essential, carbs are not, meaning that, yeah, I'm probably not going to die, but does it mean that I'm going to get good results still? I mean, I could also drink Coke or Diet Coke every single day. I'm probably not going to die either, but is it really good for me? Is it optimal for me? No, right? So to me, this is not a solid argument. And if you look at somebody who's not eating carbohydrates at all and has done this for like years, and then somebody who is eating solid good amount of carbohydrates, then you see that the person who is eating them is generally healthier and has the results that you want to get. Another thing that some people might say is, well, carbs are bad because they spike your blood sugar. Well, blood sugar is supposed to go up when we eat carbohydrates. Blood sugar also, by the way, goes up when we eat protein. Right? So it has a similar effect. But of course, yes, there are carbohydrates that are friendly for our blood sugar and others that are not. So I'm not talking about eating like bags of candy and calling that okay. It's not, right? But when we talk about just like, oh, you can't have potatoes or rice or bread because they will spike your blood sugar and that's a bad thing. It's not. Of course, the spike will happen, but it should come down as well. So make sure that you understand this is a normal thing that happens in the body and it shouldn't be feared. Blood sugar spike shouldn't be feared. It's just, is it coming back down as well, right? And another argument that you may have heard that those people say who are like totally against carbs is that, well, you can only eat them if you're going to burn them, right? So there's this burning and earning mentality. Yeah, you can have that bread, but make sure that you go work out after, or you can have that rice, but only on a workout day. And I don't agree with that because your body uses energy for so many other things also. It's not only about working out, and you need carbohydrates even on days when you don't work out. So it's not that black or white. You only need carbs when you work out, or you don't ever have any if you don't work out. It just doesn't work that way. All right, so it's also interesting to see how some people think that there are only certain carbs that are allowed, and the only good carbs are supposedly vegetables. So anything else is bad. Don't have it. And those people are like, yeah, you can have carbs, but make sure that they're only good carbs. And what a lot of people are getting wrong is that now they're eating tons of Brussels sprouts and tons of broccoli and maybe some carrots there because this is the vegetable carb and that's the only allowed carb. But there's nothing wrong in eating rice or quinoa or oats or even bread. I have nothing against that. other grains, you can have these things. And honestly, I think if you only eat those light vegetable carbs, there's also still a chance that you are not meeting your carbohydrate goal if you just eat broccoli and zucchini as your main carb source. So it doesn't really work that well. Also, fruit, very, very demonized. Oh, it's just like glorified candy. No, it's not. It's not. Fruit is good. Fruit is essential. Fruit tastes really great, and it's a great source of carbohydrates. And nothing wrong with eating fruit either. So make sure that you're not going along with this and that you understand the value of carbohydrates. They do fuel your workouts. They are your body's preferred source of energy. And this is what your body wants to use first. Now, if these carbs are not available because you're not eating them, what happens is that your body just starts going after its own tissue a lot of times. There happens this process called gluconeogenesis, which basically means that the body has to get creative and find that glucose from something else. So it starts using your body's backup systems, which is, let's go and make that that energy that we need from your muscle then, because the carbs are not available. So how are you going to then build muscle if your body is literally eating itself, basically, right? So think about it. And it's not only the muscle tissue, it can also be organ tissue that your body goes after, pancreatic or liver, right? Your body will get creative. Your body's not dumb, right? It's creative. It's like, oh, okay, I have to start breaking down then tissues to provide the stuff that I need. So think about it and understand that you don't only have to eat vegetable carbs, and you definitely shouldn't be cutting out all the carbohydrates or having those really, really low carb days, even if it's just a couple of days a week. Why? Why would you eat so low calories and so low carbs if your goal is muscle building? So this was one of the things that I think the person that you're looking up to and like, oh, I want to have her body, I want to look like her, but she's probably doing and you're not doing. So you're probably avoiding the carbs because you're so afraid. You've been told those scary stories that carbs spike your blood sugar and carbs are not essential. You can totally be fine without them. Also, by the way, coming back to this point one more time, it may be more okay for men, right, to not have as much carbohydrates or as dense carbohydrates. They do a little bit better. But again, coming back to the women and women physiology, and especially if you are still getting your periods, carbohydrates are super important. I've seen many times period issues. I've seen many times hair loss when we're avoiding the carbohydrates, low energy, and all that good stuff that you don't want to deal with. All right. And the second thing that I want to talk about when you're looking at somebody like, oh, I want to have her body looks really strong and lean and fit and defined and all that kind of stuff is that this person is probably not fasting. So if you want to do it the healthy way, then you are eating normal meals, and that also includes breakfast. There's no reason for you to fast 16, 20, 24 hours before you eat breakfast. And I know people have been told like, yeah, you need to give your body complete time off to rest and digest. And this is how you kind of achieve that complete digestive rest. And I don't know who defines and how do you measure that now the digestive rest has been complete and that we need 16 hours for it. Where is this coming from even? I don't understand where this is coming from. I don't know that there's any evidence that tells that this is the truth, or how do we even measure that thing? So I don't believe in this. I see very good results. I see women getting excellent results if they have a normal overnight fast, which is like 10 hours or 12 hours, something like that. And they wake up, they eat breakfast. Having hunger for breakfast is a healthy thing. Not having hunger for breakfast, something's going on. Your metabolism is probably sluggish. It's not working as well as it should. So your metabolism is probably slow. You have to do something about it because you want to have more faster and more flexible metabolism. So now if you come back to this argument, well, but the digestive rest and cell regeneration, all that kind of stuff. Okay, let's say that this was true, then what is the cost of that, right? What is the cost? Let's look at the other side of it, because we know that long fasting, especially for women, and again, those who are cycling, it is very stressful on the body. And when it's stressful, it increases our stress hormone output, cortisol, adrenaline, of course, who has to do the job? Your adrenals, right? So your adrenals are under a lot of stress, under a lot of pressure, working on providing you with these stress hormones because your body thinks that you are in a bad situation, you are stressed out, and you need that. Well, that again starts messing with your cycle. And, it's there's many other things too. Like I've already mentioned, hair loss is pretty common, just muscle weakness is pretty common. And also just when you're working out hungry, where is the building material for your muscles? Where is it? It's non-existent. Your liver can store to 8 hours, about 8 hours of glucose in the body. And now you've been fasting, it has already been 14 hours, and now you're working out, right? Does your body have the nutrients and the carbohydrates and the energy that it needs in order for you to put on muscle? Probably not. So it's just you're pushing your body more. You're making your body use its backup systems. Like I mentioned earlier, it's going to go after your muscle tissue, organ tissue. And how do you then build that muscle that you really wanted to build? So the people who are really good at this, who are getting the results, who are looking phenomenal, all the things you want to get, and who have been doing this for a long time. I should actually say that too, because anybody can get results on a ridiculous diet, right? Those who have been doing this for a long time usually are eating breakfast and usually are eating carbohydrates. There are, of course, some exceptions. Not everybody is the same, but I would say most of us, most of those people who do these things, they eat regularly. They also eat breakfast. They have normal lunch and dinner. It's not about like depriving and restricting and making sure that, you don't eat one extra bite of apple, because that's going to put you over your carbs for the day, because you can't go over 50, something like that. It's just unreasonable. And to me, it doesn't really make much sense at all. So I really encourage you that you eat enough carbohydrates. I encourage you to stop doing the long fasts and have just a normal overnight fast. Like I've said, I haven't seen anybody getting worse results because they started eating breakfast. They're getting better results because now they have steady energy. They have enough energy to use for their workouts. They're feeling better. The headaches are less, and so on. Cycles are more normal as well. So think about all these things. And I know that they can be hard to adjust to, especially if you have been doing the opposite for a very long time. Coming back to the quote that I read to you earlier when I started this episode, the key to those things that you want to get is sometimes doing the thing that you're the most afraid of. And if you've been told all the time that you should have to fast and that you have to eat low carbs, it is scary to overcome that. So start taking gradual steps, increase your carbohydrates a little bit, maybe close that fasting window a little bit, right? So that now instead of 20 hours, you 18 and then 16 and then 14 and then normal 12, something like that. Things don't have to happen overnight, but they do have to happen if you want to have a healthy body and healthy metabolism. And if you also want to have muscle building results and results that you can maintain and the lifestyle that you can maintain for as long as we're here, because I don't think that anybody wants to fast all the time, and I don't think that anybody wants to be afraid of carbohydrates every minute. So I don't think this is sustainable either. Okay, so this was today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. And if you haven't joined my Fit and Fuel Facebook group yet, I really hope that you will do it, and I'll see you in the group. Bye bye.